The trade station Orion's Gate was always busy. Merchants shouted prices. Alien voices mixed with the hum of engines, and the smell of strange spices floated in the air. Humans were rare here, so Ethan Cole stood out. He was a tall man, with worn work gloves, grease on his sleeves, and a tool belt hanging from his hip. He had been fixing a cargo loader for 3 hours and was just packing up his tools when he heard the sound of boots behind him. Ethan Cole, a deep, metallic voice, said. Ethan turned. 2 armored figures in black and silver stood there, the crest of the Galactic Federation glowing on their chests. Their helmets had no faces, only a glowing red slit for eyes. Every nearby merchant fell silent, and even the loud music from the bar seemed to fade. "That's me," Ethan said slowly. "What's the problem?" The taller officer stepped forward by order of the Galactic Federation. "You are under arrest for crimes against the Council." The words were sharp, final, and echoed across the loading bay. Ethan blinked. Crimes. "I think you've got the wrong guy." Before he could say more, a soft voice came from the side. "That's impossible. He's innocent." A young alien woman pushed through the crowd. Her skin was pale silver with a faint shimmer. Her hair? Dark blue and tied in a braid that reached her waist. Her golden eyes locked on the officers. She wore a long coat with the insignia of the Zellery royal family on the collar. "Lyra," one officer said in a low tone, "you are also under arrest." The crowd gasped. Everyone knew the Zellery royal house was powerful, and arresting one of them in public could spark trouble. Lyra raised her chin. On what grounds? The officer ignored her question. He pulled out a set of energy cuffs and stepped closer. Ethan took a small step back, not because he was afraid, but because he was trying to understand why this was happening. "I don't even know her," Ethan said. "I've never been to your council. You will have the chance to explain yourself to the tribunal." The officer cut him off. His tone made it clear the tribunal would not care. Around them, station workers whispered. A human and a Zellery princess being arrested together. Some thought it was a scandal. Others thought it was the start of a war. Lyra's eyes met Ethan's for the first time. There was fear there, but also something else, a spark of recognition. As if she had been expecting this before Ethan. Kudesk. The officer snapped the cuffs onto his wrists. The metal was cold, and a faint hum told him they had an energy lock. "Walk," the officer ordered. As they were led through the market, Ethan heard voices calling out. Some people shouted insults at him. Others shouted at the officers. The metal walkway rang under their boots, and above them, large glass windows showed the endless stars. They reached Docking Bay 7. A sleek Federation transport ship waited with its ramp open. Inside, shadowed figures stood ready, their rifles pointing toward the entrance. Ethan glanced at Lyra. She was cuffed too now, her coat hanging open to reveal a faint burn mark on her shoulder. It looked fresh, and Ethan wondered if someone had already tried to harm her before. They were about to step onto the ramp when the station shook violently. An explosion thundered from somewhere above, and alarms screamed through the air. The lights flickered red, and a thick cloud of smoke rolled into the bay. "Contact all units." A voice shouted through the officers' coms. Shapes moved in the smoke-masked figures in black armor, but not Federation. They were faster, rougher, and they carried strange curved blades that shimmered blue. One of them pointed at Lyra. "Take her," he shouted. Ethan's heart raced. He wasn't sure what was going on, but he knew one thing. If they took her, he'd never find out why any of this was happening. The officers raised their rifles, but the masked attackers were already charging. One tackled Ethan's guard, knocking the cuffs loose, just enough for Ethan to feel them loosen. Without thinking, he slammed his shoulder into the guard, grabbed the key from his belt, and freed himself. Lyra stumbled as one of the attackers grabbed her arm. Ethan darted forward. yanking her away and shoving her toward the maintenance tunnel entrance just behind a cargo crate. "Come on," he shouted. She hesitated only a second before following. Behind them, the bay was chaos, gunfire. Shouting, sparks raining from the ceiling, Ethan pulled her into the dark tunnel. The sounds of the fight fading behind them, neither spoke as they ran, their footsteps echoing. Ethan didn't know where they were going, only that they needed to get far from both the attackers and the Federation, somewhere in the shadows ahead. Lyra's voice finally came, low and urgent. "You shouldn't have helped me," she said. "Now they'll never let you go." Ethan glanced at her, breathing hard. "Too late for that," he replied. And in that moment, he knew whatever this was, it was only the beginning. The maintenance tunnel was narrow and dim, lit only by old flickering strips on the ceiling. The smell of metal, dust, and oil was strong, and every sound seemed louder here. Their footsteps echoed as they ran, the hum of the station vibrating. Through the walls, Ethan's hand stayed on Lyra's arm, not to drag her, but to make sure she didn't fall behind them. Faint shouts and clashing metal told him the fight in the bay was still going. But it wouldn't stay there for long. If either side had trackers, they would soon be on their trail. Ethan slowed just enough to glance back. The tunnel was empty. For now, Lyra's breathing was sharp, her coat torn where the burn mark was. She clutched it closed with one hand, but her golden eyes stayed locked ahead. "Do you even know where you're going?" she asked, her voice calm despite the situation. "Not exactly," Ethan replied, "but I've worked on this station for 6 months. I know the parts nobody visits." They took a sharp turn and descended a set of graded stairs. Below was a wide chamber full of giant spinning machines, their edges glowing faint blue. The noise here was so loud they had to shout. "This is the coolant processing level," Ethan said. "No one comes here without clearance. We can hide for a while." Lyra didn't argue, but her gaze kept darting. Around, she was scanning every shadow, every walkway above them. Ethan found a narrow crawl space under one of the machines and motioned for her to get inside. It was tight, dark, and smelled of oil, but it gave them cover once inside. Ethan checked the cuffs, still hanging loosely from his wrists. He snapped them fully off and tossed them aside. Lyra did the same, rubbing her wrists where the metal had dug into her skin. For a moment, neither spoke. They just listened to the deep mechanical hum around them. Finally, Ethan asked, "Why did those guys want you?" Lyra didn't answer immediately. Instead, she studied him, as if deciding how much to reveal. When she spoke, her voice was low. "They're not with the Federation. They're mercenaries hired to take me to someone who doesn't want me alive." Ethan frowned. "And the Federation arresting you too. That's not a coincidence." "No," she said, "it's not." The weight in her tone told him she was holding back more, but before he could push, a faint vibration ran through the metal floor. Ethan stiffened. It was too steady to be random. Noise. It was the rhythmic thump of boots. Someone was coming. Lyra drew in a slow breath, her hand moving to a small, concealed blade on her belt. Ethan tapped her arm, signaling her to stay quiet through the slats of the crawlspace. They saw shadows moving across the chamber, 4 figures in Federation armor, scanning the area with helmet lights. "They came faster than I thought," Ethan whispered. One of the soldiers paused near their hiding spot, his beam of light sweeping dangerously close. Ethan's muscles tensed, ready to move, but then the soldier's cum crackled, and a voice ordered them to search the upper levels first. They turned away, boots clanging up the stairs. Ethan exhaled slowly. Lyra kept her eyes on the direction they went. "They'll be back," she said. "Then we keep moving," Ethan replied. They crawled out from under the machine and slipped into another maintenance shaft on the far wall. This one was even darker. The lights long dead, Ethan used a small hand torch from his belt. Its dim beam, just enough to guide their steps. Lyra walked close behind. After a while, she spoke again. Her voice quieter now. "You didn't have to save me back there." "Yeah, I did," Ethan said. "You were about to get dragged off by people with knives that hum. Not exactly friendly." She almost smiled, but it faded quickly. "You've made yourself a target now." "Guess I'll just have to deal with it," Ethan said, without looking back. The shaft ended at a hatch with a rusted wheel lock. Ethan turned it slowly, metal groaning, and pushed the hatch open. Cold air rushed in. Carrying the smell of ozone, they stepped into a wide, dimly lit hangar filled with broken ships. Ethan recognized it instantly. The salvage bay, unused for years. "This place is perfect," he said. "No cameras, no guards." Lyra nodded, scanning the ships. One of them, a small shuttle with cracked paint, caught her eye. "Can you make that one work?" she asked. Ethan grinned. "I can make anything work." They climbed inside the shuttle. Dust puffing up under their boots. Ethan checked the cockpit. Running his fingers over the old controls. "It'll take some time," he said, "but we could get off the station in this." Before Lyra could respond, the sound of distant metal clanging echoed through the hangar. It was slow, deliberate. And getting closer, Ethan and Lyra exchanged a look. Whoever it was, they weren't in a hurry, which meant they knew exactly where to find them. The metal footsteps echoed louder in the salvage bay. Ethan's heart beat faster as he glanced at Lyra. She stood by the cracked window of the shuttle, eyes scanning the dark corners. "We don't have much time," she said. Ethan nodded. Fingers flying over the worn controls, the shuttle's engines coughed and sparked. He worked quickly, trying to bring life back to the old machine. Lyra looked down at her hands, trembling slightly. She had always been strong. But now fear was visible. Ethan wanted to ask her what she was hiding, but before he could, the bay doors started to grind open. A squad of dark figures entered, moving slow but sure. They carried heavy weapons that glowed faintly in the dim light. Ethan cursed under his breath. "Get ready," he whispered. Lyra's eyes hardened, and she pulled out a small pistol from her coat. Ethan grabbed an old wrench nearby. They were not soldiers, but desperate. The first attacker stepped forward, scanning with cold eyes. Suddenly, Lyra fired a quick shot, hitting the attacker's shoulder. He growled and lunged at her. But Ethan swung the wrench with all his strength. The metal hit hard, and the attacker stumbled. Falling to the ground, the fight was short but fierce. Ethan and Lyra worked together like they had known each other for years. After the last attacker fell, Lyra breathed heavily. "We can't stay here," she said. Ethan started the engines again, the shuttle shaking as it came alive. As the ramp lifted, Lyra turned to Ethan. "You need to know the truth," she said quietly. Ethan nodded, waiting. "I am not just an alien girl from a royal family," she began. "I was sent to find proof of corruption inside the Galactic Federation." Her voice trembled, but her eyes were steady. "Someone powerful wants to keep it secret. They used my name to trap you." Ethan listened carefully. He felt the weight of her words. "We have to get this proof out to the galaxy," she continued. "But first, we need to survive." The shuttle lifted slowly from the salvage bay. Outside, the station's bright lights blurred into streaks. Ethan looked at Lyra. Feeling a strange connection, they were both trapped in a dangerous game. But maybe, just maybe, they could win it together. The shuttle moved fast through the starry sky. Ethan kept his hands steady on the controls, but his mind raced. Lyra sat beside him, her eyes fixed on the glowing screen. They were leaving Orion's gate behind, but the danger was not over. "We can't go back," Lyra said quietly. "The Federation will call for backup soon." Ethan nodded. "I know a place," he said. "An old friend lives on a moon nearby, off the grid." Lyra turned to look at him. "Why help me?" she asked. Ethan smiled a little. "Because you saved my life in the tunnel," he said. "And because someone has to stop this madness." The shuttle's engines hummed as they jumped into faster space. The stars stretched into lines and time seemed to slow when they landed on the small moon. The surface was rocky and quiet. Ethan led Lyra to a small cabin hidden between tall rocks. Inside, a man with a kind face and many tools welcomed them. "Jocks," Ethan said. "This is Lyra." Jocks nodded and quickly got to work fixing the shuttle's damaged systems. Lyra watched him with curiosity. "He's one of the best mechanics in the Outer Rim," Ethan explained. Jocks smiled and said, "And lucky to have friends like you." Days passed as they repaired the shuttle and planned their next move. Lyra told Ethan more about the corruption she had found, secret deals, stolen technology, and broken laws. The Federation was hiding the truth behind lies and power. One night, while Ethan worked on a small engine part, Lyra heard a noise outside. She stepped out quietly and saw two shadowy figures moving near the cabin. Her heart beat fast. She raised her pistol and called Ethan. "They found us," she whispered. Ethan grabbed his wrench and stepped outside. The figures turned, revealing themselves as bounty hunters. "We want her," one growled, "alive." Ethan stood firm. "We don't want trouble," he said. The hunters laughed. "Too late for that," one said, and they charged. The fight was fierce. But Ethan and Lyra fought back with everything they had. Jocks joined, throwing tools and hitting targets. After a brutal struggle, the hunters fled. Breathing hard, Ethan looked at Lyra. "We can't stay here," he said. "No safe place left." She answered. But despite the danger, they all knew one thing. The truth had to be told, no matter the cost. The night was cold and silent after the hunters fled. Ethan and Lyra stood outside the cabin, looking at the dark sky. Stars blinked faintly through the thin clouds. They both felt the weight of what was coming. "We need allies," Lyra said softly. "But who can we trust?" Ethan shook his head. "The Federation is too big, and many are afraid." Lyra's eyes grew hard. "Atisa, but some want change, even inside the system." They decided to reach out to an old contact of Lyra's, a rebel leader who had been fighting the Federation's corruption for years. The plan was risky, but it was their only hope. Traveling by stolen shuttles and hidden routes, they moved through space. Every jump was filled with tension. The fear of being caught always close when they finally arrived at the rebel base. It was a hidden station inside an asteroid. The walls were rough, the air recycled, and every face showed the scars of battle. Lyra's contact, a tall woman named Zara, greeted them. Her eyes were sharp and her voice strong. "We have heard your story," Zara said. "But proof is what we need to strike." Lyra pulled out a small data chip. "This contains evidence of the Federation's secret deals and crimes," she said. Zara took the chip and looked at it closely. "This will change everything." "If it's real," she said, "but getting it out won't be easy." Suddenly, alarms blared through the base. Red lights flashed, and a voice warned. "Security breach. Intruders detected." Ethan grabbed Lyra's hand. "They found us," he said. Zara shouted orders, "Get to the escape pods, now." They ran through the station's narrow halls. Federation soldiers poured in from all sides. Gunfire echoed, and sparks flew from damaged panels. Ethan fired a borrowed pistol, covering their retreat. Lyra hacked a door panel, opening a path to the pods. They jumped inside the closest pod as the base shook from explosions. The pods shot out of the asteroid. Outside, stars streaked past as they raced away from danger. Lyra looked at Ethan. "We are not safe yet," she said. "But this is just the beginning." The escape pod drifted in the darkness of space. Its small thrusters pushed them toward a nearby moon. Inside, Ethan checked the navigation screen while Lyra held the data chip tightly in her hand. Neither spoke for a long time, the silence filled only by the soft hum of the engines. "We can't keep running forever," Ethan finally said. Lyra nodded slowly. "I know. But every time we stop, they find us." Ethan glanced at her. "That means someone is tracking us. Maybe even someone close." The thought was heavy. If there was a traitor, finding them would be as dangerous as fighting the Federation itself. The pod landed in a rocky canyon, far from any settlements. They stepped out into the cold night air, their boots crunching on the dusty ground. Above them, the sky was full of stars, brighter than they had seen in a long time. Ethan set up a small campfire while Lyra worked on a portable transmitter. "We need to send this data to as many places as possible," she said. "Even if they catch us, the truth will already be out." Ethan agreed. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them. As they worked, faint movement flickered in the shadows of the canyon walls. Ethan's hand went to his weapon. "Lyra," he whispered. She turned just in time to see 3 cloaked figures approaching, their faces hidden. One of them spoke. "Give us the chip, and we'll let you live." Lyra's grip tightened on the device. "Not happening," she replied. The figures moved fast, but Ethan was faster. He fired a warning shot into the ground. They froze, realizing he wouldn't. "Hesitate still," the leader smiled under his hood. "You can't run from the Federation forever," he said before they vanished into the night. Lyra looked at Ethan, her voice steady. "They're not giving up." Ethan nodded. "Then neither are we." The fire crackled between them, and in that quiet moment they both knew the fight was far from over, but they were ready to face whatever came next, together. The night on the canyon floor was short. By dawn, Ethan and Lyra were already packing their gear. The portable transmitter was ready, its small light blinking. All they needed was a strong enough signal to send the data chip's contents across the galaxy. They climbed the canyon wall, the cold wind biting at their faces. At the top, the view was endless open sky, distant mountains, and the faint glow of a communication tower far away. "That's our way out," Ethan said, pointing. "It's risky," Lyra replied. "They will have guards." Ethan smiled faintly. "Then we don't go in through the front." They moved carefully through the rocky terrain, avoiding patrol drones that swept the area. By the time they reached the tower, the sun was setting, painting the horizon in golden red. 2 Federation soldiers stood at the entrance. Ethan signaled for Lyra to wait. He crept behind the nearest guard, striking quickly and silently. The second soldier turned, but Lyra's shot dropped him before he could raise the alarm. Inside, the tower hummed with energy. Rows of consoles glowed faint blue, and the giant dish above turned slowly toward the stars. Ethan plugged in the transmitter. While Lyra inserted the data chip, the screen filled with files, recordings, and proof of the Federation's corruption. With one final press, Lyra sent it all into the galaxy's open network. The system beeped. "It's done," she said. But there was no time to celebrate. A loud metallic crash shook the floor. Federation reinforcements stormed the room, weapons ready. Ethan and Lyra fought side by side, dodging blasts and returning fire. The smell of burnt metal filled the air. One shot grazed Ethan's shoulder, but he kept moving. They were almost surrounded when a sudden broadcast echoed from every speaker. The Federation's crimes were now public. Images, voices, and documents streamed across every channel outside. People across the galaxy were already reacting, some shouting for justice, others for rebellion. The soldiers hesitated, unsure of their orders. Lyra stepped forward, her voice clear and strong. "It's over," she said. "You can't silence the truth anymore." Ethan and Lyra walked out of the tower into the cool night. The stars above seemed brighter than ever. They didn't know what would come next. War, peace, or something in between. But as they stood there, side by side, They knew one thing for certain. They had changed the galaxy. Lyra looked at him and smiled. "Looks like you're stuck with me now." Ethan chuckled softly. "Could be worse," he said. And together they stepped forward into whatever the future would bring.